The revolver's hammer clicked back, sharp as a rattlesnake's warning. The wagon halted. The mules tossed their heads, snorting clouds of dust into the shimmering heat. The man on the bench seat did not flinch. His hands rested open on his knees, palms weathered, veins rising like dry creeks. "Step down," the woman said, her voice thin but steady. She stood on the roadside, half hidden behind a scatter of boulders, boots sinking into sand. The brim of her hat shadowed her eyes, but the gun's barrel glinted silver in the sun. The man's gaze drifted toward her without hurry. His eyes were pale, the kind that had seen horizons most men never lived to reach. He studied her as if she were no more than another stone in the desert. Then, with the slow grace of someone unwilling to waste movement, he climbed down from the wagon. Leather creaked. Dust rose. "Hands where I can see him," she ordered. He obeyed, still calm. His shadow stretched long and thin across the road, cutting through the heat mirage. The wagon loomed behind him, boards groaning in the wind. Burlap sacks swayed, tied down with fraying rope. A single chest sat wedged near the back, its iron corners dull with age. She circled warily, revolver never wavering. Her breath came quick, though she fought to keep her shoulders squared. "What's in the sacks?" she asked. "Grain, rope, salt." His voice was even, like a man naming the days of the week. "That chest." He didn't look at it. "Nothing you'd want." Her lip curled. "I'll decide that." She climbed onto the wagon, boots thumping the planks. She yanked at a sack, ripping the twine, spilling corn kernels that rattled across the boards like tiny bones. She pawed through another, just flour dust puffing into the air, coating her hands white. The man stood still, watching, his face unreadable. "Not much worth dying over," she muttered, shoving the sack aside. "No," he agreed. "Not much worth killing over, either." The words hung heavy in the silence. She moved toward the chest, fingers twitching. For a moment she hesitated, eyes narrowing. Then she snatched at the latch, rusty, stubborn, unmoving. She cursed under her breath and stepped back. "Forget it," she snapped. "I'll take the food. The chest can rot." She leapt down from the wagon, clutching a sack under one arm, another dragging in the dust. She glanced at him once more. The revolver still aimed, though her grip trembled. "Stay put," she warned. He didn't move. She started down the road, boots crunching gravel, bags pulling at her shoulders. The desert swallowed the sound of her footsteps. Then his voice followed, low and steady as a drumbeat. "You missed one thing." She froze. The hair on her neck prickled. Slowly, she turned. The man hadn't shifted an inch. His eyes caught hers, pale fire under the brim of his hat. "My last name." The wind sighed through the sagebrush. A hawk screeched overhead, circling the open sky. Her mouth parted, but no sound came. She felt the weight of the words settle heavier than any bullet. His name. What name? Why say it like that? As though it mattered more than the chest, more than the grain, more than the pistol in her hand. She backed away, pulse hammering. Her throat worked around dry air, and for the first time she felt the revolver useless in her grip. The man turned then, climbing slowly back onto the wagon. He took the reins, leather whispering in his hands. The mules stamped, restless, eager for the road. Without another word, he flicked the reins. The wagon creaked forward, wheels groaning, leaving her rooted in the dust with the sacks of grain dragging at her feet. She watched him vanish into the horizon haze, the desert swallowing wagon and man alike. Only the echo of his voice lingered, coiled in her mind like a brand she could not scrape away. "My last name." The storyteller's voice slid in then, raspy with age, rich with warning. Out here, a name could weigh heavier than iron. A name could cut sharper than steel. Some folks carried theirs like a burden, some like a shield. And some, like him, well, some names were carved so deep into the bones of the land that even the desert wind knew to whisper it soft. The woman clutched the stolen sacks close, but her hunger felt colder now, less certain. She had taken his food, but left behind something she couldn't touch. Something that rattled louder in her chest than any coin or corn kernel. The man's wagon dwindled to a dark speck against the horizon, swallowed whole by light and distance. And she stood alone in the heat, not knowing yet that she hadn't robbed him at all. The sack tore open, spilling corn across the barn floor. Yellow kernels scattered, rolling into shadows where mice skittered. The woman dropped to her knees, gathering fistfuls, cursing under her breath. Hunger drove her, but it was not louder than the echo that haunted her. "You missed one thing, my last name." She shoved the grain back into the torn sack, chest heaving. The barn groaned in the night wind, boards loose, rafters sagging. She chewed a handful of kernels raw, jaw tight, stomach clawing. Still, the words chased her. Why say it? Why let her walk away? Why not take the gun from her trembling hand? She leaned back against a post, revolver resting heavy in her lap. Moonlight slanted through broken boards, cutting the dark in thin blue blades. The name. She didn't know it, but the way he'd spoken made her certain others did. Certain it was worth something, fear, respect, maybe worse. Her eyes burned, but she didn't sleep. She saw his face each time she closed them, lined with dust, calm as stone, eyes pale and unblinking. A man who'd lost the need to prove anything. The night passed slow. Coyotes howled far off, answered by silence. By dawn, she was already on the move. The wagon tracks were easy to follow, twin scars pressed into the sand. She walked with the revolver at her hip, sack of grain strapped to her back. Each step raised dust that clung to her boots, her throat. The desert stretched endless, canyons jutting like teeth, sagebrush hissing in the wind. Heat shimmered even in morning light. She pushed on, driven not by hunger now, but by the knot in her chest. She had to know. That evening, she heard voices before she saw the fire. She dropped low, crawling through mesquite, the smoke curling above a ring of stones. 3 men sat around the flames, their hats tipped back, bottles passing between them. Horses grazed nearby, tails swishing at flies. The girl crouched closer, breath shallow. "Saw him with my own eyes," one said, voice slurred. "Driving a wagon, plain as you please." Like time hadn't touched him. The second spat into the fire. Sparks jumped. "Ain't possible. Man like that don't just ride back into the open. Thought he'd been buried years ago." No, the first insisted. "I'd stake my life." That was him. Same eyes. Same damn stillness. The third man leaned forward, voice hushed. "If it's him, we best steer clear. Folk used to say he don't need a gun to win a fight. Said he could stare a man cold before the trigger's pulled." The girl's stomach tightened. She pressed her palm against the dirt, heart hammering. The men drank in silence for a while, fire popping between them. Then one muttered low, almost reverent. "Cain. Marshal Elias Cain." The name hit like a stone dropped in water, ripples spreading through her chest. She bit down on her lip hard enough to taste blood. The men spoke more, stories half-whispered, half-believed. Of Cain standing alone against 10 riders on the Brazos. Of Cain dragging wounded men from a battlefield no one else walked away from. Of Cain who laid his gun down one night and vanished. The girl drew back, breath shallow, the name thrumming in her skull. She'd pointed a gun at that man, stolen from him, and he'd let her. The storyteller's voice slid in again, rough as gravel, sure as scripture. "Names, child. They carry weight heavier than iron. And that one, Cain, it carried graves behind it. Too many to count, too many to forget." She didn't sleep that night, curled tight against the mesquite roots, ears ringing with whispers. Dawn bled over the desert in thin streaks of red. The wagon tracks pulled her onward. By midday, she saw him again. The wagon rolled slow along the canyon road, mules sweating, boards rattling. He sat the bench calm as ever, hat brim low, hands easy on the reins. Her throat closed. She stayed hidden, crouched behind a rise, watching. He didn't look left or right, just forward, like the land itself had already shown him the way. The chest sat untouched in the back, shadowed under a blanket. She gripped her revolver, knuckles white. She could step out, demand the truth, force his name from his lips. But her hand shook, not with fear of his gun. He hadn't drawn one, but with fear of what he was. She let him pass, heart pounding, dust choking her. The wagon creaked on, shrinking into the horizon. That night, alone again, she sat by a dry creek and whispered the name to herself. Cain. It felt heavy on her tongue, like iron. She whispered it again, softer, as if someone might hear. The desert answered with silence. Her chest burned. She remembered the way his eyes had fixed on her, the mercy in his stillness. He could have ended her. Instead, he gave her that name, like a burden or a warning or a gift she didn't yet understand. The sack of grain sat beside her, half empty, but she was hungrier than before. Hungry for the truth. Boots hit the boardwalk with a hollow thud. The wagon rolled slow through the main street, wheels groaning, mules snorting in the heat. Dust rose in sheets, clinging to the shutters of the saloon, the bell of the blacksmith's forge, the cracked glass of the general store. Heads turned. Whispers rippled. Men froze mid-step, women stilled with baskets on their hips. A card game inside the saloon faltered to silence. The wagon creaked on, and the man on the bench seat didn't glance left or right. His hat brim shadowed his eyes, but his presence pressed heavy on every porch. The chest rode untouched in the back, corners dull iron, blanket folded neat atop it. The sheriff leaned against the post outside his office, hand brushing the badge pinned to his vest. His jaw worked as he watched the wagon pass, something like recognition flaring in his stare. The mules halted at the trough outside the saloon. The man dismounted, boots crunching hard on the gravel, spurs whispering faint. He tied the reins, his movements steady, unhurried. Then he stepped inside. The doors creaked wide. The smell of whiskey and dust met him. A piano struck a single note before falling mute. Every eye inside turned. He walked to the bar, laid a coin flat on the wood. His hand lingered, calloused, steady. "Water," he said. The barkeep's hand shook as he poured, glass rattling. In the corner, 3 men leaned low at their table, voices a murmur under the hush. Eyes flicked toward the stranger, then back to each other. Their hats shadowed, faces drawn with greed. One licked his lips. "Cain," he whispered. The word was nearly soundless, but the girl heard. She stood in the doorway, half hidden in the shadows. Dust clung to her hair, her clothes. She hadn't meant to step inside, but the sight of him there, calm, solitary, pulled her like gravity. She gripped the revolver at her hip, heart battering ribs. The man, Cain, took his water, drank slow, set the glass down clean. Then he turned, eyes pale fire under the brim, scanning the room once. He said nothing. The outlaws in the corner shifted. Their boots scraped wood. One leaned back in his chair, spit into the sawdust. "Ain't much in that wagon but grain," he muttered. "But that chest." The second grinned, teeth broken. "Worth more in the law'll pay us if it's really him." The third glanced toward the girl by the door, suspicion narrowing his eyes. She ducked back in a shadow, pulse quickening. Cain stood then, the floor creaking under his weight. He crossed the saloon without hurry, pushed through the doors, and stepped into the dying light of evening. The town exhaled only when he was gone. Night fell heavy. Lanterns lit the windows, moths circling. The girl trailed Cain's wagon as it rattled toward the edge of town, wheels carving grooves into the dust. She caught up to him near the livery. The mules stood restless, snorting clouds in the lamplight. He'd set the wagon aside, sat alone on the steps, hat tipped back. Her boots crunched close. He spoke without looking at her. "You've been following since the canyon." She froze, breath sharp. "You want something?" His voice was steady, not unkind. I heard them," she stammered. "Heard what they said about you." Cain raised his head then, eyes catching the lamplight. They were old eyes, carved with storms. "Don't listen to men who drink on stories," he said. "But it's true, isn't it?" Her hand trembled at her side, fingers brushing the revolver. "Your name, what you've done." He studied her, silent a long moment. Then he sighed, slow, like the weight of years pressing through him. "Names don't feed a soul. They just follow." From the shadows, bootsteps closed in. The 3 outlaws emerged, guns low at their sides, grins sharp as knives. "Well now," one drawled. "Seems the stories do walk on 2 legs." Cain didn't move. His shoulders stayed square, his hands still. The girl's heart thundered. The second outlaw jerked his chin toward the wagon. "Chest in the back." Hand it over, old man. Cain's gaze shifted, pale and steady. Don't reckon it belongs to you. The third stepped closer, cocking his revolver. Then reckon you won't be needing your life neither. The girl's breath caught. She glanced at Cain, waiting for the flash of steel, the gun drawn, the legend to unfold. But he only sat there, still as stone, voice calm as dusk. Child, he said without looking at her, storms always come, one way or another. You don't stand in their path unless you mean to. The words struck like a hammer. She felt the choice claw at her. Flee into the night, or stay and see what his name truly meant. The outlaws closed in, boots grinding dirt, eyes hard with hunger. The lamplight flickered. The chest in the wagon loomed in shadow, silent and waiting. The storyteller's voice slid in, low and rough, like wind across dry bones. When a name like his drifts into town, trouble don't ask permission. It comes with teeth bared and pistols drawn. And when the moon rises high, blood'll answer the call. The outlaws fanned out in the dirt, lantern light burning sharp edges across their faces. Shadows stretched long, twitching with each step. Their guns caught the glow, barrels hungry, hammers drawn back. Cain rose from the livery steps. No rush, no fear. His boots pressed deep into the dust, shoulders straight. The girl stood frozen a few feet behind him, her revolver shaking in her grip, breath quick as a trapped bird's. Chest, one snarled. Now! Cain's pale eyes fixed on him, steady as stone. Ask my name first. The outlaw spat, sneer twisting his face. Don't care what it is. Cain's gaze swept the circle, calm and cutting. Then you're already dead. The air snapped tight. Silence held, heavy enough to choke. The first outlaw lunged, revolver jerking upward. The girl gasped. Dust burst. Cain moved, not fast like youth, but certain, each step clean, each motion exact. His hand found a revolver from the wagon's chest, as if it had always been there, cloth falling away, steel flashing in the lantern's glow. The shot cracked like thunder. The first man spun, fell hard, face down in the dirt. The others fired. Bullets sang through the night, biting into posts, shattering glass, sparking stone. Horses screamed and reared against their ropes. Cain didn't flinch. He walked forward, firing once, twice, measured, final. Each shot rang true. One outlaw staggered, clutching his chest, mouth wide in a silent cry before he dropped. The third cursed, stumbling back, firing wild. The girl ducked, boards splintering inches from her. Her hand shook, but instinct drove her. She raised a revolver, squeezed the trigger. The shot cracked sharp, and the last outlaw reeled, shoulder torn, gun falling from his grip. Cain's pale gaze fell on the man. Slow, deliberate, he crossed the dirt between them, revolver still steady, smoke curling from the barrel. The outlaw's knees buckled. You, he stammered, blood flecking his lips. You're dead. You're supposed to be dead. Cain stopped over him, shadow swallowing the man whole. He leveled the revolver once more, voice low, steady as iron. Marshal Elias Cain. The name struck harder than any bullet. The outlaw's face drained white, eyes wide with recognition, with terror. He tried to scramble, boots clawing dust, but Cain's shot dropped him cold. Silence. Only the crackle of a lantern flame remained, the whimper of a spooked mule. Smoke drifted low, curling around bodies sprawled in the dirt. The girl stood rigid, chest heaving, revolver still raised. Her ears rang with gunfire's ghost, her eyes fixed on Cain. He turned slowly, meeting her stare. The revolver lowered. He slid it back into the chest, shut the lid with quiet finality. You see now, he said. She swallowed hard. Why'd you let me rob you? His gaze lingered, pale eyes burning softer now, lined with storms long past. Because mercy costs less than blood. She stared at him, words tangled in her throat. The lantern light flickered across his face, etching every scar, every line. He seemed carved from the land itself, dust and stone and silence. Cain lifted the chest, set it gently at the saloon steps. He opened it once more, but not for the gun. His hand drew out folded letters, worn thin, corners yellowed. He laid them down careful, like an offering, like a prayer whispered to the dead. The girl's eyes caught on the writing scrawled across the top page, Sarah Cain. He closed the chest, hands steady, and rose. Dawn's first light bled into the horizon, washing gold over the rooftops, over the still bodies cooling in the dirt. Cain climbed back to the wagon seat. The mules stamped, snorted, and with a flick of the reins, the wagon rolled forward. The boards groaned, wheels cutting deep tracks through the street. The girl stood watching, dust curling around her ankles. She whispered the name to herself, soft, reverent, Elias Cain. The old storyteller's voice came low, worn with years, certain as scripture. And so it was told. A girl with a gun, a wagon in the dust, and a man whose name weighed heavier than gold. They say the desert still remembers that night. They say the wind still carries his name. Cain, Marshal Elias Cain. Not a man, not anymore. A legend. The wagon vanished into the rising sun, swallowed whole by light. And the tale lived on.